Welcome back, y'all. It's your boy, Rotten Russ, Rotten Metal Garage. And today, we're going to keep going with you know who. I know I've been slacking on posting videos lately, but it's time to get back into it. No more excuses. Are you ready? I'm ready. Are you ready? Let's get into it. Let's dive in. Here I have a piece of cardboard. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start trying to create the bracket to relocate the alternator. So what I've done here is I've cut this part out, the bracket, which I will post right here. This is the part that's going to go to the old mount, and then this is going to be the part that folds this way. This is going to be the part that folds this way, and we're going to build it piece by piece. And then when I get the template out, cut it out of metal and start building my own. I'll tell you right now, I'm going to save $250 by doing this. Here's the first general idea. So I got the shape. Right here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run something along it to make an indent of where the hole's going to be, and then go off of that. Alright, now that I've got the holes where I need them, this is going to be the mounting plate that obviously mounts here. So now what I'm going to do is make the plate that comes up on both sides. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to make this side where I need it, and then I'll make the same for this side. Alright, so disregard what I got here. So far what I have is the mount, and then I've taped it. So what I end up with is, I'll put that there, drop this one. Almost looks like the state of Arizona, but now you can see I've got the main idea of what I need here. With that being said, now what I need to do is figure out how and where I'm actually going to mount the alternator. So what I'm going to do is fold this, bolt this in to the actual motor, and then kind of mock up where the alternator is going to sit, and then kind of crudely draw it out, cut it, you know, with way more than I actually need, and then go through and give it a little fine detail. This right here, I kind of tried to freehand from the photo, which I'll post right here. And off of this one will be tabs that I would bend off of this. So here, let me give you an example. So it kind of come out like this. These will be your mounts, and you would bend those in. But again, this means nothing. I'm just doodling, if you will. But I'll show you what I come up with next. From one of the pictures that I've seen, the bracket is actually bolted on to this. So that means that part that I already created is going to come off of here. That bracket has to come up and at least mount to this bolt here, and then from there I can adjust it where I need it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find, first of all, shorter bolts, because these bolts are just way too long. Once I figure out the bolts that I'm going to use for this, those will be the bolts that I'll use for the bracket itself. And then once I bolt that template that I made up to here, that kind of gives me an idea of where I need to go to get this bolt, and then I can hold the alternator where I need it to figure out where it's going to clear all this. As far as the belt that I'm going to use, I'm going to use the original belt that runs off of everything. That bracket actually has a pulley that goes where the alternator originally sits, to kind of just help it relocate it up to where it's going to be. So once I get the bracket actually made and I get the alternator mounted to it, I'll have to cut my original belt that came with the motor, you know, figure out the route that I need to go and cut it, measure it, and then just make sure that it's got the same grooves as the pulley, which I believe is 6, but we'll get to that when I get there. But let's get that on there. So that's what I got so far. So I'm gonna have to cut this. I already kind of notched it to bypass the ABS block. So as you can see, that part is done. So what I did was I cut it to clear the frame here. What I had to do was I had to add a piece to bolt in here. I got a longer bolt. I'll make a spacer for this. And now what I'm gonna do is see exactly where the alternator is gonna bolt in. Again, even if I bought the relocation bracket or whatever, I'm not even sure it's gonna clear the main fuse block and the ABS sensor. So A, I'm saving $250. B, I need to figure out where exactly that alternator needs to sit to work with my application here. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep on keeping on. Let's see what I end up. Alright, so what I got going here is I use the original bolts that would mount the alternator. What I did was I shaped a piece of the cardboard to what I would need to mount it. So this would be obviously the alternator side. This is the bottom. So now what I can do is I'll use the bracket that I started to make. So I have the curve of how I need it, but when I lay it out flat, I get the piece of metal of what I'll need. And then once I come over here, I got my 4 points of mounts. So 3's 3, that one there. This is gonna be obviously where it's at. So this is where I need that alternator to sit. But as you can tell, it's in the way of the hose that will come off of the thermostat. So I'm thinking it's got to be even higher. So as of right now, that's what I've come up with. Alright, so from here, I had to widen it so that this will sit flush on the head, because this was sitting too close to the thermostat. So now what I got here is the motor mount, the head mount, and then the bracket that I will make for the actual alternator here. So now all I got to do is create something from here to here. I'm gonna do that right now. Alright, so here I have all 3 bolts in it where to mount up to the old one. I have the head bolt. Obviously this might have more of a curve to it. I might have to trim this one up. I mocked the alternator up to it with the bolts. It all lines up. It's just way too heavy. It'd crush it if I try to put bolts in it now, but for the most part, you can see how it's gonna sit there. Looks like it lines up. Again, I'm thinking with the space off of the head itself will kind of determine where the bracket actually sits off of the head. If I have to, I can always bend this tab outwards to push the whole bracket out. But for the most part, there's the bracket. Now what I'm going to do, cut all the tape off, start marking it on metal, cut it out, weld her out. Here I have a pretty thick piece of steel. I am going to start with the part that actually mounts to the block. Is going to be the thickest, because I feel like this needs to be the most reinforced. So again, I can't cut, but I'm gonna keep drilling these holes out, get this ready, and then these I'll obviously use a little bit smaller gauge metal. So a quick rundown of what we got here. Got me a nice thick piece of metal there. Got a thinner piece kind of mocked up to see where I need it. And then here I have the actual bottom mount that the alternator will bolt up to. And now what I got here is a piece of plate that I'm going to weld up, so that way I can weld this piece hopefully to this corner here, and then I'll just tack this on to this piece just to sturdy it with that, because I'm afraid this is going to be too flimsy. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and tack this up, and then we'll see where we end up with that. So here we are. We have bottom bracket, back bracket, and that, as you can see, now I can just weld it where I need it. So what I'm going to do now bolt an alternator to it and find out the best location to attack it. It's going to be kind of hard to show you, but this is the original belt. There are other belts that you can get that are shorter that eliminate the AC compressor, but as you can tell, it looks like it's going to work out with me moving this so high. I can sort of lift this up, show you how it takes some of the slack out. So obviously I think it might work out pretty well. I'm thinking as far as the thermostat housing, I might be able to cut it and get a hose that will turn a little tighter. That to me, I feel is a little more engineering, but I should be able to figure that part out. But what I need to do is make sure this stays lined up with the rest of the pulleys so I don't slip a belt. But yeah, once I figure out exactly where I'm gonna put it, I'll probably tack weld it. And it's actually a good thing I used a little thinner piece of metal because it's flexible, so I can kind of maneuver where I need it. And then when I put the front plate from here to this bracket, obviously it should stiffen everything up a little better. So I'm going to leave the belt on, try to get the alternator where I think it's going to be best, and maybe tack that bottom bracket, the actual alternator bracket, to the back bracket right there, give or take. See, I can have all that room where I can put it and then weld it. So, and then obviously I'll have to weld it to this actual bracket itself. But again, it's a little more flexible, obviously, than this big thick ass piece and this alternator bracket, if you will. Let's figure it out, see if I can't tack it up and go from there. All welded up, front and back. I know it's not the prettiest, but it'll do. Let me set you down. Let me bolt that up real quick and then see where I need it exactly. And I'll probably just tack it on to this lower plate here. Alright, so bolting in here, pretty much got it sorta where I can maneuver it. Obviously go somewhere right here. Obviously that'd be the first tack right there, and I could loosen the bolt up and pull it back a little bit, but grab that. For the most part, there it is. spin the water pump. Spins that. Obviously it's pulling it forward because it's not welded down, but pull that back, pull all the slack out. I think that's gonna work just fine. Also, on a different note, before I finish that up, I have radiators here. So now that I have that pretty much mocked up, I'm gonna see how that fits in here. But first, what I'm gonna do, so I don't mess anything up, is I'm gonna cut that cardboard up and protect the face of that radiator. Much better. Blam! There it is. So the radiator is pretty much in. I just had to notch that a little bit. I'll have to cut a little more around that hose. And then I'll have to trim this up a little bit just to get the hose to sit on there properly and for this to come out. See how it kind of sits on there? I'll just trim around this right here. And as far as that, the radiator is in. And then I still have the little tabs where I can possibly just use the original fan as well. As far as the bracket, don't mind this. I'm gonna cut this off, but yeah, it's on there. That's bolted in. I could barely move it, so now I'm gonna take this off, finish welding all this in, this up here along there, on the inside, and paint it. And that bracket is good. I don't even know, honestly, if I'm gonna do a bracket on this side, just so I can actually get to the bolts. So yeah, take that off, finish welding it up, and call it done. Maybe put a little brace in there or something, we'll see. But let's get that out, welded up. There we are, all welded up, painted up. Wait for it to dry, slap it on there. Boom, there it is. Thing is solid. So now that that's in, welded, painted, what I'm gonna do before I actually bolt it in, plug it in, and all that good stuff, this is the oil sensor. It's way down here underneath all that. Obviously somebody took it upon themselves to do, I don't even know what to call this, but there's also a random hot wire off of one side. Not necessarily sure what their idea was for that, but I am going to cut this one, extend it. There it is. For the most part, it's in, it's done. I just saved 200 bucks. And the cool thing is, it looks like I'm gonna have plenty of room now for the hose. Obviously it's only gonna go right here, so yep, let's cut this and extend it, fix this sloppy mess that they got going on here. It is all bolted in, wired up, ready to go. I'm not sure if you can see it, but there is the temperature also wired up, ready to go. So to give the oil wire a little protection, what I did was I took some of this vacuum line, ran a razor blade right down the middle, and just pushed the wire in it. Kind of give it a little more insulation. Oh, if you couldn't tell, put the coils in, wired the plugs. So that is ready to go. The only thing I need to do with that is kind of make the wires look a little neater. I know eventually I want to go with the later hemi dual coils that eliminate the wires. But that involves buying new valve covers and wire harness. So I figure just for the time's sake, we'll keep the wires. Like I said, this is all installed, ready to go. I think what I'm going to do is buy another pulley just to kind of take some of the slack out, because I mean it's there, but obviously I gotta pull some slack. I was thinking I can even probably put some spacers here just to lift it a little more, but in the relocation bracket they actually have tensioner or pulley, whatever you want to call it, that pushes the belt a little more. But as far as alternator, it's good to go. Next will be the radiator, but I think that's gonna do it for tonight. It is actually Thanksgiving night, so had my turkey, grubbed out with the fam, came out here, finished the alternator. So I think it was a pretty productive day / night. So like I said, that's gonna be it for this video. I'm gonna pick this back up tomorrow, where I'm gonna try to get the headers in. I started to cut the frame where I needed to. I just have to grind a little bit to get them to sit. They're almost in, but not quite. As far as the fenders, the wheel wells, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the truck fenders wheel wells. I'm going to bolt them in where they bolt to the fender. Figure out where I'm going to cut them along this, because it bolts in those three, so to cover all this and go up and over the wheel. So I'm going to see what I can do with the old one to get it to meet up with this new one. And once I get all that, I'm going to weld it to this, so that way all I have to do is unbolt it here, unbolt it from the fender, and the wheel well will be part of the strut towers. And then get to working on this radiator, finish it up, see if I can't get it to mount on the original tabs here. But hey, I appreciate you guys. Remember, thumbs up, like that shit, subscribe if you haven't, and comment if you got anything, any tips or anything that I might be missing. Anything's appreciated. But yeah, that's it. Peace.